All right, YouTube, I think it's time to talk about the upcoming presidential election. Of course, people are talking about it as though it was next week uh, because of Hillary Clinton. The presence of Hillary Clinton has really thrown the race into turmoil because she was kept saying, "Oh, I'm not going to run. I'm not going to run. Trust me, I'm not going to do anything like that." I think the Democrats have realized something. They got lucky with Obama because Obama was relatively unknown. I mean, nobody really knew who he was. They knew he was a senator. That's really all they knew about him. Everything else was almost conjecture because he was such a small time politician. He was basically a do nothing senator who just sort of sat in and had good speaking skills. That's basically all he was known for is he could steamroll McCain in any debate, and so he became popular. He really didn't have any other credentials to back up why he was running for president in the first place. And Hillary technically won the nomination. She had more votes than Obama had. They chose Obama, I think, predominantly because they wanted to contrast an extremely young Washington outsider, somebody who hadn't really been in politics that long and who had great speaking skills, with McCain, who kind of stumbles over his words a bit. He's a lot older. He looked like the face of the Republican Party. He was an older dude, an older, very white dude, and here's this young black individual. That's why he was chosen. Whereas Hillary, she was in her 60s. Now I believe she's in her 70s, and she's going to be even older by the time the next race comes around. And she's white too. I think they decided that having his black skin to contrast with McCain being ultra white, like wearing suspenders and golfing white. I think they thought that was a better strategy, plus his speaking skills, than having Hillary, who's, yes, she's fairly good at speaking, but also she also comes with a bit of Clinton baggage. Everyone remembers all of Filegate and all of these other things from the Clinton era. Uh, all the mafia ties and the soft money with China and all of these other things. The Clintons aren't known for being an exceptionally honest family. So I think Hillary will run, and I think a lot of people basically say, well, if she runs, she's got the nomination down. I would agree it's likely, because I can't see them pulling the same thing with finding some relatively unknown but well-spoken senator to sort of nudge her out at the end of it. I think she's got the money, she's got the organization, she's got basically everything she needs to get the nomination. Not necessarily to win, but to get the nomination, yes. I think Hillary could easily do that. I think there's a problem, though. The Democratic Party is split between those who don't want to run the risk of Benghazi plus everything Bill ever did coming out, plus the quandary over, well, Bill will be the first man. There are still people in the party that don't like the idea of women in politics, and women are largely kept out of politics. They're very underrepresented. I think that Hillary Clinton, yes, she could get a huge majority of the female vote, but I think that the Republicans have an ace in the hole in this election. They have Rand Paul. Chris Christie doesn't have a chance. If they nominate him, they will lose. It doesn't matter what candidate the Democrats put forth. All the Democratic candidate has to do is say, you were all buddy-buddy with Obama after the hurricane hit, and you praised his glory and turned your back on your own party, and the Republicans would be more than happy to fall onto him like a pack of wolves, like they did to Gingrich when he fucked up in this last election. So Christie, if they nominate him, they're completely insane. Marco Rubio, what does Rubio have? He might take a small proportion of Hispanic votes. That doesn't help him, especially when Hillary has the unique potential to turn parts of the deep South into swing states. Georgia and Arkansas are two very heavily red states. But Hillary Clinton feasibly could win those states if she ran. You've got to remember, it wasn't that long ago that parts of the South went for Bill Clinton twice, Arkansas and Georgia. Those are very red states. To lose states that are that red is terrible. The ace in the hole is Rand Paul, because he would win New Hampshire, which is a swing state, but it tends to lean libertarian. They would vote for him in a second. He'd win Iowa. he'd potentially win Nevada. He's got at least 3 swing states that likely would vote for him. That would even out the damage done by Hillary taking parts of the Deep South and make it a more fair race. Christie, he's from New Jersey. He can't win his home state in the general election. It's too heavily blue. He wouldn't win New Jersey, no matter what anyone wants to believe. And even the loss of New Jersey would be slight compared to the loss of parts of the Deep South. Marco Rubio has basically no advantages. Who else are the Republicans going to field? Rick Santorum? Yes, he would win a few Midwestern states. Glory hallelujah, that's all he would win. Newt Gingrich? They're talking about Jeb Bush. I can sum up the argument that the Democrats would use against Jeb Bush. He's related to George and George H.W. Bush. That's a problem. Plus, he was the reigning governor in 2000 when magically his brother won the state and thus the presidency, even though he didn't win the popular vote there. He lost it by tens of thousands of votes. And they found truckloads of votes on both sides of the camp that had been suppressed, that hadn't been counted. Nobody wants Jeb Bush. I think the Republicans' only option is to nominate Rand Paul. I think the Democrats' only option is to nominate Hillary Clinton. I wouldn't vote for her. I may or may not vote for Rand. I think it's more likely than voting for Hillary. But really, both sides have sort of exhausted their capital on the issue. These last few presidential races have been so divisive, and there's been so much infighting, and the rise of the internet doesn't help these candidates, that a lot of the people that would have in the past been viable even after losing the nomination are no longer viable candidates. Rick Santorum, back before the age of the internet, having lost this last election, would still have a shot the next time around. The Republicans have a tendency to nominate runners-up. These runners-up are typically the governors of large populated states like Texas or California, or senators from smaller states like Kentucky or someplace like that. The Republicans have a long history of doing that, as well as nominating vice presidential figures, people who did serve as vice president. The problem is they don't have any VP candidates right now to field. They can't, Cheney can't run. It's not possible for him to win an election. They've don't have any real governor. They've got Rick Perry. You saw how badly he did because he simply doesn't have the charisma and the energy to keep up with such a race. So he's basically out. They don't have any governors, but they do have Rand Paul. He's a senator from Kentucky. He's the perfect fit for the Republicans' going ethos of senator from small state, governor from large state, or whoever was the last Republican VP. He fits in with that mold. Thus, I believe, if history tells us anything, he's likely to get the nomination. And he would be fairly likely to win. And now, the Democrats have a few other individuals they can field. Howard Dean has expressed some interest in running. Of course, from my state, he's the former governor. He did a fairly decent job as governor. I don't know if I would vote for him, but he was at least halfway decent person. And he would have likely in 2000 been the candidate instead of Al Gore had it not been for his famous Scream speech that forced him to drop out. But nobody cares about that anymore. If Hillary refuses to take a position of running and Hillary's out of the race, or Hillary has something else, health problems or whatever, she had some health problems a while back. If something happens and Hillary can't be the nominee, Howard Dean is literally right now number 2. He's been the chairman of the DNC. He has executive experience and he has experience working with lobbies and bureaus, so he would be a likely candidate. I can't think of many other Democrats that are within striking distance. I know there are some perennial candidates like Dennis Kucinich who don't have a chance, unfortunately, even though they're halfway decent. John Kerry might attempt to run again on the platform of, hey, I almost beat Bush the second time around, give me another go. He couldn't stand up. He's getting older too, so I don't think he's likely to try. And he's also got the money, so, whatever. The Democrats have another habit of, if they don't have anyone that stands out, like a Hillary Clinton or Howard Dean, then they'll field some complete unknown because nobody has any baggage on them because they haven't been in Washington long enough. Also, they're easy to fool around with. You get somebody elected who has no political experience almost, somebody like Obama, they don't know how an executive function is run. So it's easy to control them. You just say, oh, this is what the big boys do. Here, let me help you. I'll be your advisor. Oh, listen to this lobbyist, but kick these guys out. It's very easy to control. That's sort of the trade-off. A Washington insider, 9 times out of 10, they're already corrupt. Washington outsider, 9 times out of 10, they get corrupted, which is a constant problem. But I think the Democrats will likely attempt to put Hillary in. I think personally, here's what I think, and this is almost a Romney-esque thing, because Romney was fairly well known too, and very rich, just like the Clintons are. It's clear, in retrospect, Romney did not want to run. He was coerced into running either by people within the Republican Party or by business associates who were placing bets and trying to get somebody in there who would bow to their wishes. It's fairly clear that on a personal level, he didn't give a damn about becoming president. He didn't care. He didn't shed a tear. He just stood there in shell shock saying, thank God I can go home and rest now and pump my own gas and my family will stop being targeted. It's fairly clear he didn't want to be the president. He would have found it the icing on the... He probably would have fucking resigned the first day if he had been elected and just let his VP run everything and said, I'm going golfing. You can tell that his heart really wasn't in it. Maybe at first it was, and back in 2008 you could tell he wanted it. This time around you could tell he had already been dragged through the mud, and the poor dude, like, you say poor dude, he's a multi-millionaire, but still, yeah, his family was targeted, his wife, his kids. That happens in politics. Hillary seems to be the same way. I don't think she wants to stay in politics. I think she's done. She's already been the Secretary of State. She's already been a senator. She's already been the first lady. She feels, it seems, like she's already accomplished everything she needs to accomplish in life. And she's accomplished more than almost any of her peers within the Democratic Party. And she started out as just being basically intern, first lady, little thing, well, not little, but, you know, unofficial roles as first lady. I mean, it's not an official title that gives you any real power other than you have a huge staff at your beck and call day and night. But it's fairly clear she's getting older, she's having health problems. I think the Democratic Party is going to beg on bended knee and say, please, please run for the presidency. We want, number one, we want the Democratic Party to have the first female president, so we've basically cornered the market on being tolerant. And number two, please, we don't have anybody else who can win against somebody like Rand Paul, because Rand Paul's fairly young. He's got plenty of experience, but he's also fairly much of an outsider. He has attacked other members of his party in the past, which means he can be bipartisan. He has a lot of things going for him that nobody else in the Republican Party has. It'll be interesting to see who's nominated, but I think it's going to be Hillary versus Rand for the presidency. And if that happens, it's going to be a slugfest to the end. No telling who the hell will win. Now, of course, I prefer third party, but Rand Paul is a marginal libertarian. He's made it clear that he's not his father. I think he's marginally more honest than some of the politicians in Washington. I wouldn't expect great things from him, but I would expect him to be a more decent president than what we've seen. Just as Ron Paul, while some people thought he was the Messiah, I think if he had been elected, he wouldn't be stellar, but I think he would have done a much better job than, say, Obama or Bush. The Reagans of the world, the neocons and the neoliberals have basically screwed this country. Another reason why I don't particularly like Hillary, it would bring back the Bill Clinton era, which isn't terrible compared to what we've had under Bush and Obama, but it's still, there are things that are better. You don't need to settle for mediocre when you can have something that's, you know, above average. You don't have to settle for mediocre. Right now, we're settling for shit. We have for years and years, ever since I've been in friggin' middle school, we've had Bush, who rammed everything into the ground, and now Obama's ramming everything into the ground, and it's both parties, and there are two options. We get a third party going, a libertarian and or libertarian progressive. Yes, there are leftist libertarians. Orwell was one of them. Libertarian party of some form and function that's viable and takes control. Or we foist libertarianism on one or both of the major parties. Rand Paul can be seen as the stopgap for the Republican Party becoming libertarian, just as Dennis Kucinich or someone like Jesse Ventura would have been the libertarian gap that was placed in the Democratic Party. But even if I don't like the outcome of elections, and even if I don't necessarily personally like any of the candidates, I still like politics. It gives me something to complain about, to debate over, months and months of fun. So I'm looking forward to the midterms, and then I'm looking forward to the main election. It doesn't matter to me who's elected. I'm still a libertarian, and I'm going to do what I want. If I get arrested, whatever. Um, just the way it is. Anyway, that's about it. Peace out.